Jolien Harmsen is a realtor, historian, and an author. Born in 1966, she spent the first half of her life in the country of her birth, the Netherlands, and the second half in her adopted hometown in Beaufort, St. Lucia. In 1999, Jolien graduated with a PhD on the social history of Beaufort. This was followed by the comprehensive book, A History of St. Lucia, authored with co-authors Guy Ellis and Robert DeVoe in 2012. Together, she and her colleague Cecile Tony Wiltshire operate Terra Online Real Estate, which was started in 1999, as well as The Reef, a beach cafe and restaurant, wind and kite surfing center, and The Reef Beach Huts, located on Sandy Beach at the southernmost tip of St. Lucia. Tony and Jolien are both dedicated members of civil society and the local business community, and as such are committed to the sustainable development of St. Lucia in every sense of the word, socially, economically, environmentally, and educationally. Terra Online Real Estate markets property island-wide, from very high-end villas and developments such as Hotel Chocolat and Rabot Estate in Soufrière, and various villas at Malgertrude and Anne-Chassenay, to modest homes and residential and agricultural land. Being based in Beaufort, they specialize in properties south of Castries. Castries is the capital of St. Lucia. They are founding members of the Realtors Association of St. Lucia and members of the Association of International Property Professionals, AIPP. Join us as we hear from Jolien today talking about Terra Online Real Estate in St. Lucia.
That's Jolien of Terra Online. And Jolien, so we're fortunate because you're going to be talking to us on two different levels. So the first one is going to be from the buying a property in St. Lucia. So you and I both have some experience in doing that, where individuals from overseas have been attracted to the island for one reason or the other. Maybe it's the majestic pitons, maybe it's the beautiful sandy beaches, maybe it's even the people, the culture that draws them in. So when a person has now decided, ooh, I want to learn more about St. Lucia, I love to be able to introduce them to you as one of our contact persons, probably my favorite at the moment for sure, in St. Lucia. How or what advice would you give somebody in best way to prepare for that venture?
Come down, exploratory visit. No matter how many videos and fancy drone footage and pictures and how many hours we talk on the phone, it is unless and until you put your feet on the ground at you're in our airport, you get in that taxi or in a rental car or a friend picks you up, you drive around and you stop and you talk to the people and you actually see what's around, how it feels. You know, I mean, there's two different types of people in the world. There are people who make lists and who think about stuff. And when you want to know, if you want to get an answer from them, you ask them, what do you think? And there's the people where you say, so how do you feel about it? You know, all of us are just one of those two types of people. But I still believe that a property and a country needs to hit you somewhere in your gut. It needs to have a connection. It needs to resonate. It needs to want to sing for you. And that can only happen to you in person, I think, which is why a lot of the clients are people who came on holidays and that happened to them, you know, and then they come back and say, oh my God, I want to look at homes. But the first thing you need to do is come and actually spend a little time here, ideally a week, 2 weeks. If you're seriously thinking of moving here, you know, as a realtor, I need to tell you, you should buy something. As a person who's moved to St. Lucia, I would quite often tell people, why don't you rent somewhere for a while? Even if it's a couple of months, you know? See how you actually like that side of the island as well. Because the other thing about St. Lucia, it's a small island. It's only 20 by 40 kilometers. You know, when you look at it from on Google. It's an hour and a half's drive from the very northern tip to the very southern tip. If you take the west coast, it might take you two hours and 15 minutes. It's not a big island, but it has a very surprising diversity in landscape, in seascape, in microclimate, and in something I call peoplescape. Different little parts of the island feel very differently. There are parts of St. Lucia I personally it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, I can see what people love about it, but it's not for me. I wouldn't want to live there. And there are other people who live in that area and you can't shift them for love or money. That's where they need to be, you know? And even within such a small microcosm, it instills very strong feelings in people, different areas. And it's our job as realtors to suss out what's for you. So a big part of our job is to just stop and listen and ask people, okay, ideally, how do you see yourself here? And, you know, if that's their dream, then we try and find the place and the property that comes closest to them being able to do that.
I love it. And I love what you said.
Patrice,
I don't know.
You're heading with all this. I keep going, you know.
Absolutely, I know. I promise. I'll keep you on track or in time.
Yeah.
But I love what you just said. The island has to sing to them. So there's that emotional attachment. You mentioned it at the very beginning. So it really is that emotional feeling, right? That connection. And I loved all the points you raised, and you're absolutely right. I lived the north of the island most of my life growing up, but it's so funny. We used to look forward to coming to the south, which was in Viewfort side, because that was our vacation time. It was all, the salt air was the thickest there. Like, it was just so amazing. I loved it. So with that, so best way to prepare, you said, so you suggest come and stay for a moment. So come and actually feel it, experience it firsthand before you invest in it. The second thing that I would love to you to walk a person through is, what is the viewing process like? Because I know in more developed countries, you call up a brokerage, you speak with an agent, and boom, 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 everything's properly organized in a day. Yeah. It's not quite the same on the island. So can you share what sort of the expectation of a viewing process would be like, please?
Yeah, boom, boom, boom. You know, boom, boom is the sound, is the backtrack of the music here. I don't know that anything ever. Two things, boom, boom, boom. No, I like to say flexibility makes for efficiency here. Yes, we can plan it months ahead. Yes, I will do my very best to speak to everybody and get it all lined up, you know. But you know what? It might be something's going to go wrong that day. Quite often I say, okay, well, let's meet at 10 o'clock. You know, I will line up 6, 7, 8 properties at the most, you know. I always try to give people a heads up as we go, especially if it's homes, not just land. So as I go, I'll give the homeowners, but chances are one of the homeowners will say, oh, something happened, I'm not there. Can we do 4 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock? So you need to be able to roll with the punches a little bit. But yeah, I mean, basically so custom clients from overseas tend to email first, or whichever other way we get onto them. We talk about a whole list of properties. I like to put together a portfolio, small portfolio for clients. You know, quite often they will write about one property. I'll give them the information on the property, but I'll ask, okay, so what is it you're really looking for? Give me an idea, you know? What are your likes? Almost as importantly, what are your dislikes? What do you really not like about a property, or what do you really not want? What are you worried about? How well do you know St. Lucia? Which parts of St. Lucia do you like and not like? If you haven't been, just come down and spend a week looking at it first. If you have an idea of where you'd like to be, I will line up a set of properties for you. Let's meet, let's sit, let's run through the options. Quite often, in just sitting down and talking to them, I can already dump 1 or 2 properties and maybe call 1 or 2 other people and see if we can add them on. Because actually, when they think they want, 10 acres of land, all they want actually is a garden or the other, So we're quite flexible. And then we just drive around and we look at properties. I will tell you about all the other properties that we pass on the road, why I think they may or may not suit you, what has sold in the past. So my aim by the end of a day, and it's quite intense, can be a bit 6 hours, 6, 7, 8 hours sometimes, is by the end of that day, you will have a pretty good idea of what's for sale, at what price, pros and cons of the various properties. And you have a fairly good idea of the real estate market in the south of the island. And that will take us as far as, Miku, Prana, sometimes Dennery on the east coast, all the way down Escape, Mikud, Savan, Canel, Vieux-Fort, out to Labrie, Choiseul, Industry, Delcer, some of the countryside areas, as far as Soufrière on the other side. And you'll have a pretty good idea whether you want to be on a hill with a view and a breeze, or if you want to be closer to the coast and walking distance to a beach. which is something a lot of people ask for, but actually in practice may not actually be so ideal. So we run through all of that. So, I'll give you an idea of what has sold in the past, at what kind of price, if it's very high, why somebody would have still bothered to buy it at that price. If it's a cheap deal, how they got lucky, And then, either we find something that day, or I'll have a much better idea of what the client is looking for by the end of the day. And if we don't have it on the market at that time, then I'll keep an eye out for them. So even if you're back in Canada or the States or England or wherever you're from, if a property like that comes along, chances are I'll give you a shout and say, look, this thing's just come on and I think it might suit you.
It's perfect. And it's so true. I always say to people, it's especially when you're making that type of an investment. It's for me, these are lifestyle choices or properties, and you probably won't do this every year or every day in your life.
It's a big decision. So
it is a big decision.
When people say, look, I don't want to waste your time, I'm like, look, you're not wasting my time. It doesn't always happen. It may not happen today, but if it's meant for you, then we'll find it. If it's out there, I'll find it. And if I dedicatedly have to go and look for it because I understand what you're looking for, I'll still try and find it. And, it might not be until your second or third visit.
Yes.
Or I may have found something that really ticks it. And then you might even want to hop on a plane and come and look at it. Or send down a friend or a relative, to look at it for you.
For sure. Yeah, we've seen, I know personally the success and the stories and the connections that are made throughout. Like, people have had some beautiful, I call it, as you said too, is about singing too. I love that. I really love that. The island is so inspirational to some. And I've always felt that a person either really, really loves it or hates it. There's no real in between. But the process, thank you for that. Because it's not a quick, oh yeah, that's great, and a quick turnaround. It does take time. And same on the flip side, because I know people who might, for whatever reason, be ready to sell. It doesn't happen overnight. It's still part of that process. Speaking of which, now regarding processes, what about the buying? If you can just give a how best to prepare for, you found the property, what sort of suggestion do you give or advice do you give people to be ready for making that purchase? Because I know the buying process can be lengthy.
Lengthy, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the last question before we go into one of the properties that you sent as an example.
Yeah, the buying process. I've been in real estate for 22 years now, and I ought not to be hesitating at this point in time. But the legislation has changed recently, and it's supposed to have gotten better. I don't think it has, frankly. I think it's got more complicated, not less complicated. I know there are issues with it, and we're going to probably need some amendments to the legislation because I think there are holes in it. But the bottom line of buying property in St. Lucia is that you need to be able to show a clean police record from your country of origin. That's the main document. A set of fingerprints, and then other documents, basically to show that you're not a fraud, an axe murderer, you're not here to launder your money, that kind of thing. It's a process that could be fairly simple and straightforward. In the past, it used to take about 3 months, 4 months. We're now just watching. I'm keeping an eye on 1 or 2 other people that are going through the process right now. With COVID, that's a little more difficult again, because everything takes more time. Bottom line, the bottom line is this. You need to get a good lawyer in St. Lucia. We have a lot of lawyers. We have a lot of very good lawyers. Get yourself a decent lawyer, a good lawyer. That's important. The lawyer will put you through that process. You need to apply on your behalf for a certificate of eligibility, which is basically the due process to show that you're a bona fide buyer and that you're welcome in St. Lucia. Once that certificate of eligibility has been approved, you can then look for a property. As soon as you've identified a property, we do the negotiation on price. As soon as we have an agreement, a verbal agreement on price with the seller, you then go to an agreement for sale. Most times it's a 10% deposit that's held by your own lawyer in escrow in St. Lucia. And then while the lawyer makes sure the property is free and clear to be sold for the transaction to go through, they also then apply for your alien landholding license. And that is then supposed to be fairly quick. In the past, you'll well remember that used to take 3-4 months. It's now actually the first step of the process that takes longer, but it's no longer handled by the same authorities. It's now handled by the Citizenship for Investment Board. And all of that is new, and all of that kind of has its little tangles and, early diseases or stuff that teething problems that need to be ironed out at this stage. But the main document is you need to be able to show a clean police record from your country of origin. Once you have that, you need bank letters and references and other documents, but most of that you should be able to just submit to your lawyer, who will then use that to apply for your certificate for eligibility. Once you have all of that in place, you own property like a St. Lucian. You have the same rights as a St. Lucian. The only difference, I believe that still applies under the new legislation, is that when you sell your property, you're taxed at 10% rather than a maximum of 5%. So you pay a little bit more tax when you sell your property. The main concern that government has, other than people wanting to launder money, is foreigners coming in and buying land, because we're a small island. Land is a precious commodity. We only have so many acres of land, and you can't make more of it. So what they're very wary of is foreigners coming in, buying large pieces of land or even small pieces of land, and then sitting on it for years and years and years without developing it, actually basically taking it out of the common pool that we have here of land, and then trying to sell it at a higher price. The legislation really and truly is aimed at trying to prevent that from happening. So fair enough.
Yeah, no, and again, it leads into what we started about, how you really understanding that they cannot make more land. It's an island. If anything, over the years, we're starting to lose it because coastal land. But with regards to that, how much time, if you are buying raw land, do you have in order to develop it? Is it still within a year or 2 years?
It used to be 2 years.
Yeah.
It used to be sometimes specific. It used to be different for each license sometimes. I don't understand in the new legislation what that period is, or if there still is a period. And when I've raised that question, I can't get a straight answer. Okay. I believe it must still be 2 years. In the past, when you bought land as a foreigner, there's a regulation that says you have to build within 2 years. Whenever people did not do that, there have never been sanctions in the past. Sanctions haven't been applied. But I've always warned clients, if you put yourself in that position where you buy land and then you do not build on it, you make yourself vulnerable to government coming up with some form of sanction.
Yes.
Increasingly now you're starting to see that being applied.
Yes.
So land might get seized, or they might, you need to apply for an extension, and they can then apply certain conditions. You may have to sell it within a certain period of time. So it's all a little bit
still up in the air. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit up in the air.
Yeah. But that's why we have reliable sources to help you through now and to navigate through those processes. And again, attracting those who are looking for land to develop on almost immediately, for sure. So with that, I'm going to quickly showcase or I'm going to share my screen, one of these amazing properties that you shared with me yesterday.
I love this house.
Yeah. So as we're doing that, what can you tell us about this beautiful property?
So this property is back on the market. It's a property I particularly like, just because it's a beautiful property in a great location. It's a really comfortable home. It's a safe home. It's a house. And it's a house with fairly colorful history. It was built, let me just start there. It was built, I think, in the 1970s by a Scottish guy who came to St. Lucia back in the 1950s, I think, to work as an overseer on one of the estates. He was Scottish. He was quite a grumpy person. People who knew him, he was very reliable. He was a great guy, but, And he built a couple of stone homes around St. Lucia, particularly in this area. It's in an area called Safi. It's just outside the village of Labrie on the southwest coast. So you overlook the Atlantic, you look south out to St. Vincent, the next island. Nothing in this house is square. Everything is built. You know how carpenters used to just put their thumb up and let me get it in the camera and sort of see what's square.
Right.
Solid as rock, and is built out of rock, in fact, because he was a Scrooge as well. So it's, cheap material stuff that basically they dug it up on the land and built a house with it. It's got a basement downstairs, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and then the main house upstairs is 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. You can see the natural stone. That's a shower, actually. That house used to belong to a family who ran one of the factories here. They raised their daughters in it. Very happy family home. We then sold it. I've sold this house twice now. It's on the market for the 3rd time. And we have been in business for a little while, as you can tell. Sold it for an English-Irish couple who did some renovations to it and used it for holidays. Then sold it to the current owner, who's Canadian.
Just want to point out to the listeners and the viewers, this is St. Vincent. This is the neighboring island of St. Vincent. That's a remarkable clear day. Wow.
Yes, and on a very clear day, you can actually see into the Grenadines beyond St. Vincent. I believe it's a big way you can see from
which
here.
would be up in this area just here. No,
yeah, it's gorgeous. The current owner has owned it about 8-9 years, I think. Added the swimming pool, which really brought the property up to a new level. Renovated the downstairs basement. From everywhere in that house, you get a sea view. You get a lovely breeze. You get a very pleasant view. And then the village of Labrie, in the past 10 years or so, has really come to the fore in St. Lucia as a kind of proper, self-confident, comfortable Caribbean fishing village. The way Caribbean people who've migrated all around the world remember the Caribbean of their childhood. And Labrie is that village. It really is. And thanks to Airbnb and other internet-hosted small tourism, the websites that allow small tourism operators to come to the fore and actually own the tourism product, Labrie has really come up in the last couple of years. It's got a gorgeous beach. People are very friendly. If anything, it's gotten more friendly, and people have ownership of the tourism product there. Now, this villa has been it's on the villa rental short-term holiday website. It's done very well. It's received great reviews because the management, has been in the hands of people who are from this area, who know this area. They will put you in touch with the people that they know. So everything is, as all the good things that you can think of that we have in St. Lucia are kind of condensed into this package of the house, the location, the way it's managed, the things that they will ask you to go and do, the people they'll tell you to go with, if you want to go in the countryside, if you want to go fishing a day, if you want to go and eat at their auntie's roadside restaurant, So it's a very warm experience. It's a gorgeous house and the price is sharp. It's good. It's priced at $495 US.
Yeah. And you were just saying too, it's not far from the international airport, so which is really, really nice. And Labrie, for those of you who are familiar or maybe not familiar with the island, it's en route to Soufrière. So not only are you close to the international airport, but you're also close to the UNESCO site, which is the Pitons and the Soufrière area with it's a drive-in volcano. There's some beautiful, beautiful features. I just love Labrie. And you didn't, I remember growing up back in my day, we didn't have those type of homes to choose from. Like you said, it was a very, very rustic. It was really very much a fishing village. There were a few homes for the fishermen and that big, I was circling it, that big church, because you will find that is it a parish? Is that what we call them? So every parish has a church. And it's always been a prominent building in these small fishing villages. But
Labrie has also generated some really world-class leaders, The first,
yes, that's true.
First Mr. Universe, the first Black Mr. Universe, Rick Wayne's from Labrie, Lyric Carrasco. Our former Governor General, who was the first female, longest reigning, Creole-speaking Dame Dr. Paulette Louisi from Labrie. Labrie has generated several very, very, very passionate, intelligent leaders in various fields, doctors, lawyers as well, medical people. It's really a very interesting village.
It is a beautiful village and interesting. Jolien, thank you so much. So we will close off this segment. Any specific to property buying or ownership, any last words that you want to?
If you're ready to simplify your life, You know, don't, if you're looking for all the gadgets and the high-end stuff and the whatever you can get up in the big countries, Canada and in the United States, don't try and do that in St. Lucia, because something's going to break down and you might not be able to get the spare part. But if COVID has taught us one thing, it is that the things that really matter in your life, your home, your partner, your family, your friends, you know, looking after each other, the things that really matter, looking after yourself, your exercise, eating healthy, you know, looking after your immune system. These things, if that matters to you in your life, then St. Lucia is a great place to live.
Perfect. I will not add any more to that. That was perfect. Thank you so much, Jolien.
You're welcome, Patrice.
And to our listeners, I hope you will continue listening out for the next podcast / video that will come out soon. And we will be talking more with Jolien at another episode. So thank you again, Jolien. And thank you to all our listeners and viewers.
Take care.